Hello and welcome to this Webflow live stream. My name is Aron Kornblatt. I am so excited to be back for our first live stream in 2024. Not only is it our first stream of the year, we have a very fun topic for you today. We're going to be talking about the custom element and fun topic, new live stream of the year, and an amazing guest in Alessia from Code and Wonder. I'm so excited to have her on. I'm seeing the chat for the first time. Got so many folks. Welcome Arturo. Welcome Susan. So many great folks. And we're now streaming on Instagram as well. So if you're joining us from Instagram, say hello in the chat. That is our first ever Instagram live stream. I'm so excited to have you here. And if you want to kind of watch us on YouTube, you can come join as well. Join in the chat. Welcome, everyone. Some housework as we're getting started for this first live stream of the year. If you can't join the chat in YouTube, that's probably because you don't have a YouTube account. Make sure you have an account, make it public. You can join us in the chat. If you're on Instagram, hello, I am looking at the chat over here as well. So super excited to come and talk to you about Custom Element, which we launched in December. I'm just looking at the chat here. We've got Emran, we've got Haiti. Thank you so much, Pablo, for joining. I'm so excited. Some folks dropped their favorite HTML element. We got some divs, some marquees. Welcome, Jeff. Super excited to have you all here joining us today. So let's talk about the custom element. Launched out in December. Allows you to give you the full power of the HTML. I was looking for who would be the best person to teach us how it works, and Alessia has already used the custom element with clients. So without further ado, let's welcome Alessia from Code and Wonder. Alessia, welcome to the Webflow livestream.
Hello, thanks for having me. Can't wait.
Yeah, so excited. Thank you for joining us. I know it's 6 p.m. where you are, based out of London. How about a quick introduction into yourself, Code and Wonder, and then we're going to jump into, the custom element for today.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Alessia. I'm the co-founder of Code and Wonder. We're a digital agency based in London in the UK. And we're just a team of developers, Webflow developers that just love building sites for our clients.
And amazing sites, if I say so myself. We're super excited and honored to have you here. So you've already used the custom element with some clients. So talk to me a little bit about, what is the custom element and how did it fit into, building with clients? And then, we're going to go ahead and build with the custom element.
Yeah, sure. So we used it with a few clients actually, but one in particular is Birdie, an amazing company, and they wanted to play around with their pricing page. So having a range to manipulate the pricing. So it's the usual, depending how many visitors or how many items that you're selling, the price changes with it. So it's a really easy way to showcase the customers what's the final price.
So question from Angela, will there be a demo? Yes, we're going to jump into it in about 2 minutes. So you built a range. Question for you, what if someone has no idea what the custom element is? What would you say the custom element is? And then we'll jump into building that Birdie style pricing that you built with the range.
So I guess it's an HTML element that you can change its function by tagging like an HTML tag or by describing the HTML tag. And that defines the functionality of it. So it's a bit of a shapeshifter element where it can take different forms depending on the HTML tag that you assign to it.
Got it. So basically it can be anything.
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
perfect.
anything within the list. So there is a list because these are defined by, the HTML. So yeah, as long as it's one of those,
Okay,
then it will work.
so there's a list. Let's jump into our our shapeshifter of a stream. We're going to be talking about the HTML element. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And where do you think we should start? So you talked about. Let me go here. There we go. We've got our little. Where do you think you should start? So we start building. Do you want to talk a little bit about Birdie and how you used it there? The list. where do you think is the best place to start in talking about the custom element?
Maybe you can show Birdie very quickly, just so that people know what we're talking about. So you have this is their pricing page, and you
Mm-hmm.
have your range slider there. So depending how many hours your team delivers, the price changes below. And this one is even a bit more complex because it changes the appearance of uh, different elements as you slide. But basically what we want to look at is how do you connect the two and how do you add that slider or that range inside the page.
Right. So
So
what is the custom element part of this page? If I'm, what was, yeah, like where does the custom element live in this page?
it's just the track with the scrubber
Oh,
that you
this right
can
here. So
grab, and
this is the custom element.
yes, yes, just that line and the circle.
Okay, got it. And this, you have this little, and the pricing at the bottom here changes.
Yes. The
Okay.
rest is all done with existing or like non-custom elements within Webflow.
So I'm going to go ahead and drop this in the YouTube chat. So if folks want to play around with that. Okay. So I would like this on my page as well. So let's go ahead and rebuild, part of this, maybe not the whole thing, but at least the bones of it. Do you think, where should we start? So I'm here. This is my website that was graciously built by Alessia. Thank you again for that.
No worries.
How do I go ahead? Where should we start in terms of learning the custom element? Should we jump into the pricing page? Do you want to maybe start here?
Well,
Teach me the custom element.
let's start with something super simple. So we mentioned that the custom element is a shapeshifter. So it can take any form of any HTML element, including the ones that already exist as Webflow elements that you have on the side panel.
Got it.
So just to see how the custom element works, shall we reproduce one of those links? Just recreating basically a link block with
Right.
the custom element.
Okay. So because essentially the HTML element can be anything, it can also be the existing elements in Webflow.
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah, let's go ahead. How about we link to the pricing page? I'll create a button. We're going to link it to our pricing page where we have that slider. So how would I go about how do I add a custom element to my canvas?
So you open up the element panel on the left. And if you scroll all the way down, I believe it's in the advanced section, you have there the custom element. So
Yeah, we're clearly advanced. You're clearly advanced. So we can go into that advanced section. I'm dragging it in. Let me actually bring it up here. Where do I want this? I want this underneath. I want it into the block buttons.
Yes.
Okay. It seems to have added a div.
Yes, that is the default. So a div is an HTML tag as well.
Okay.
So now if you open the settings panel with that custom element selected.
Okay. So we're going into settings to shape shift to say we don't want this as a div. We want this to be another HTML element.
Exactly. So you see there you have div settings
Mm-hmm.
and the tag is div. But I guess if people never heard about HTML tags, how do we know what to change that to?
Right. That's what I was thinking. How do I know if so it defaults to a div. If I want it to be a link, how do I know what to put as the HTML tag to turn it into a link?
So you have two ways. Either you go onto the MTN site that has a complete list of all the HTML tags that are available.
So I think this right here, right? So MDN, the
Yep.
Mozilla, I'm going to drop this in the chat. So these are all, so when we say it's a shapeshifter, essentially we can make the custom element into any one of these.
Correct.
And we have marquee, which I think was Zach's favorite, which if we, maybe we'll explore that. So these are all of the different options. Let me actually zoom in here a bit. There you go. And how do we go about, okay, so we want to make this into a link.
Mm-hmm.
you probably know. So which one of these HTML elements is a link?
So it's the first one, the A tag.
Got it. Okay. So if I set A as the tag, it's going to give me a link?
Correct.
Okay.
And another way to find out which tag you must use if you don't know, because for example, the A tag stands for anchor element, but we keep calling it link. So it's a bit misleading. So another way that you can find out is if you inspect just any website and you look at the HTML, and it will say exactly what tag is in there.
Okay. So if I, am not like you and knowledgeable about all 100+ tags, I can look at a website, right click, and then here I can see that it's a href. So A is the tag, and then H. Can we do that with? I guess we can do that here. You
Yes.
can be like, oh, how did Alessia build this? Oh, it's an
Yes.
input tag with a class and a range. So now I can look at any website and be like, ooh, I can grab this. I can remake this.
Yes. And you can find, so the HTML tag is the first, I guess, word that comes after that like opening chevron or smaller that icon.
The 90-degree chevron.
Exactly. And so the first word is the HTML tag, and everything that comes afterwards. So for example, the class, the type, the like whatever is in there, those are attributes.
Okay. So if we want to go ahead and build a link, we're going to go ahead and set the attribute to A and then set the property to href with the link where we want to go.
The opposite. So you set the HTML tag to A and then the attribute to href.
Oh, okay. Got it. So here, A, let me see. Oh, attribute. Here we go. So href. And then we want to go /pricing.
Yes.
We can do a relative like that. There we go. And how do I go ahead and style it just like the button, right? Or how do I continue, like, how do I make this, /pricing to add some text and, style it the way I would?
So it works exactly as you would expect a div block to work, especially a link one. So you can add text inside to add text to your link or to your button.
Okay.
And you can style it just by selecting, the custom element in this case and adding a class to it.
Okay, yeah. So here we have, we wrap that in a div. We called it button enter with a text block. So we can just replicate that, right? So let's wrap this in a div. Oops. Let me go Control K, div. Let me wrap that in. We're going to call this button enter. So now it's essentially just doing exactly, and I could style this as a button, right? Just like that?
Exactly, yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, and then let's change this to pricing. There we go.
So that was a very easy one for the custom element. And we can maybe jump into something a bit more complex.
I'm confident. I don't think it's that much, I'm sure you're gonna navigate us perfectly through. So what we've done there is essentially recreated this right here, but using the custom element because the custom element can shapeshift to basically anything. Okay, so let's jump to our pricing. So just like you, Alessia, I want to have a little slider here that updates, the number of pages, the website cost. And then ideally, if we could also add like a little like a date picker, like when would you like your website actually, before we jump, there's a question in the chat from Pablo. Before we jump to this, is why don't we use the button? Why are we using a link block and not a button for the pricing button, even though our class is called button?
Great question. So anything that links to somewhere, so that href attribute is a link or an anchor link. So it has to be an A tag, because actually the button HTML tag doesn't have the option to add that attribute. So it doesn't actually allow you to add a destination of your button. So
Right.
what the tag button is actually used for is to trigger maybe like JavaScript code. So an example is you have a button that you click on and it opens a pop-up. It doesn't have a destination. It doesn't have a link to anywhere, but it triggers an action. So
Got it.
those are what buttons are for.
Okay, so in this case, because it is just a link, we should be using the anchor link. But if we want to trigger something or even like a form submission and things like that, that is a case where we'll use the button attribute. So that makes a lot of sense. So Pablo, hopefully that answered your questions. Let me know in the chat if you have more questions. And if you want to go ahead and add your names to the credits, there's a form at the top so you can see your name in the credits at the end. So, okay, let's go ahead and add our... how do I go ahead and think about, okay, I want a slider where people can pick between 1 and maybe 50 pages. And as they slide, I would like, the number to update and the website cost as well.
Sure. So I see you have a form block in there.
I do.
And as you know, and probably you already do with Webflow elements, in the form you can add inputs element. So you have one there. Now, I think in Webflow, you have a limited amount of input element that you can add, but there's a lot more, including the range. So I don't know if it's useful to go back to MDN and just double check what we're trying to achieve. I always use this as my little reference to everything.
Okay, so a form is a type of HTML element, and within that form, we can have inputs, right, for like text and dates and emails and passwords. And so you're saying that the element type would be input. So we got to find input. Let me just search for it. Let's go into input. Here we go. And this tells us these are the different types. Button being one, potentially, checkbox, color, and we are looking for range.
There it is.
Perfect. Okay. So walk me through what should I understand here, assuming that I kind of want, a range going from 0 to 50. How should I understand this page and the different options here?
So if you look at that page, it kind of tells you, okay, the HTML tag is input. So you have it there just in front of your side chevron. And then it defines a type. And so the attribute type in this case, it equals to range. So that defines what kinds of input you're trying to add.
Okay. How about we start there? How about we just bring these two in and then we'll, kind of finesse it. So if I understood this correctly, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go into kind of my broad form, maybe under calculator text. Let's go ahead and add a custom element. Yeah. Actually, add it in. Let's go bring this out into the form. And here we go into settings. We want our tag to be input. Yeah.
Yes.
And then, okay, the type is an attribute.
Exactly. So different HTML tags have different attributes that you can add to them. And that's why I always reference to MDN just to see, what kind of attributes does this tag have?
Okay, so
it's quite useful.
Yeah, the list right here, right? So there's like all of these are actual attributes. All of these are input, but the type changes, and that's what shape shifts the type of input we're asking the user, right?
Yes.
Okay, so type equal range. Boom. Okay, we got this tiny range. Let's see I'm curious to see. All right.
So that's the default one.
That's very cute. Okay. How do we style this?
You can style it exactly how you style every other element. So you add a class.
Okay. I think we had input range, right? So that sets the width to 100, gives it some spacing, and Here we go. Now, what does the input field, like now does the custom element change the fact that like if I submit this form, will everything work?
It will probably give you a value because that's what the input is. But at the moment, we don't quite know what that value is because from a user perspective,
Yeah. How
what
about we
is
try it
that?
out? I'm curious to see if we do submit this form, what do we get as input range, right? So we can see, I'm curious. I don't know if you've done this before, but I'm curious to see what the out. So maybe let's give it somewhere here. Oh no, we already have the code. Let me turn off the code here. Sorry about
Cheating.
that.
Going
cheating.
ahead.
Yeah, I'm cheating. Let me remove that. Let's republish.
Make sure you save that to know by heart.
Yeah. I'm gonna drop it somewhere. Yeah. Okay, let's go refresh this. Here we go. Okay, nothing updates. Let's give this, my email. Let's submit this form. And let me go into, I think I have my settings. And we see field 1, the output is 17, right? So that's from the range telling us we wanted 17 pages. So are there some attributes or some settings, I guess, for this input range that we could, make a limit to the top, a start? Where should we go to kind of get it closer to this really nice birdie?
So again, you can go to MDN and it shows you all of the possible attributes that you can add. There is 3 that I would always add, which is the minimum value, the maximum value, and the default value of the range. So we can go ahead and add those.
Okay, yeah, max, min. Okay, cool. So those would be attributes of the range itself. So we're going to go into here, attributes. So the input, the type sets the type of input we want. And you're saying we have min.
Yep. So you want people at least 1 page, right?
At least 1 page. But honestly, maybe we'll start at 5, once my design career takes off. So min, what is the max number of pages we want to allow?
How big is your site you want to build?
Maybe let's go 50. Let's get 50.
Yeah.
That feels about right. And then default.
So the default is just value.
Just value.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's, when you first land on the page and the scrubber is right in the middle.
Right.
So if you don't set an initial value, that's where it's going to go. But in most cases, maybe you want to start at the minimum or you want to start by the most popular value that is in there.
So yeah, we're going to start about a fifth of the way up. So 10 pages is, kind of what we recommend people start with. Now let's go ahead and save that. Let's publish. Let's see what this feels like on our live site. So our expectation is that we have 1 and then 50 at the max. Maybe we submit the form to see that those work.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we're starting at about 10. And to test, let's submit the max.
So that should be 50.
This one more time. How's that sound? We go into my forms. Let's refresh here. And we see that our max is 50.
Great.
This is too easy.
Should have picked a harder one.
A harder. We can do some harder stuff. If anyone has any ideas, drop us in the chat. What custom element should we, challenge Alessia with? Okay, but how do we update, the text, the little number here, and the website cost?
So for that, you would need a little JavaScript in there.
So I think you provided this. I'm going to submit it.
Yes.
I'm going to have a link in the description to the whole clonable and even like additional styling that Alessia built for this demo. So we're not going to go line by line here, but Alessia, walk me through globally what this code does and what are the different settings I need to apply in the actual calculator. to kind of relate this code back so it works properly, so folks can know?
Yeah. So the first thing that you should do is give some ID or class names to the values that you want it to change. So in this case, we gave an ID for the value and an ID for the cost. And the first bit is just finding those within the page.
Mm-hmm.
And next, the next bit of code is just defining what, in this case, we want dollars to be shown. So making sure to add the dollar sign to it. And lastly is the calculation. So I'm assuming you're charging $1,000 per page in there.
Is that too little? Should I be charging more? Let's start with 1,000 and let us know in the chat what I should be charging per page, and we'll update the calculator. So yeah, I'm taking the input value, I'm doing times 1,000.
Yeah, great. And the next 2 lines is just updating the text to that calculation value.
Okay, so we've got 3 things. We've got the styler is input range. We've already set that class. And then we need value and cost as ID. So those are kind of 3 things we need to figure. Let's actually save, right? So here I have value as the ID. And then here I have cost. And so ideally, as this moves, it updates both the cost and the value. So let's go ahead and publish this. And while it's publishing, go ahead and fill out the form to make sure your name is in the credits, and drop a suggested element type that we can play around with. We've got folks wanting to play with Canvas, which I think you played with recently. We'll talk
yesterday.
about that. We'll drop that in the Q&A. If you have any questions about what we're building or what you'd like us to build, go ahead and drop it in the chat. If you're on Instagram and you want to drop a question, either drop it or join us on YouTube. Okay, so let me go here. Let me refresh. And let's update this. Here we go. So we see, as I scroll, we see that it updates correctly, which works. However, it seems like the default is at 1,000. So maybe we should set the value to 1. The initial value.
You can either change the value on the range input, or you can change the values in the text.
Oh, right. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Make sure that those match, or at least at the beginning.
Like that, because we set it to 10. Yes. So let's republish that. So we got suggestions for dialogue, canvas, tables. Folks got a lot of favorite HTML elements. So let's refresh here. Okay, so now they match, and as I slide, they update.
Yes.
That's so cool. How much time did you have to think about? Did you instantly think of the input of the custom element when you were thinking about building this?
Yes. Okay. I was actually so excited that they suggested it, because I needed an excuse to use the custom element. And I thought this is the perfect example to use one, especially because, well, you used it within a form because you want to submit it. You want to submit to, the Webflow form and receive that, client request in this case. But here, we're not submitting anything. So actually, any input could be outside of a form element, which is not possible with the native Webflow input elements.
Right. So the input doesn't have to be part of a form. You don't need a submission here, and you wanted to use that outside of a form, which you are using here, which is very cool.
Exactly.
Question for Pablo. Can you style the range slider to look on brand? So let's actually, I know we want to talk about, so talk to me a little bit about how do we style this, and how should folks think about styling a range or custom elements in general?
You can, different custom elements, it depends what the HTML tag is, because it can be very different depending what functionality you pick.
Right.
But this one specifically, it's quite a bit of code, but it's simple enough to go through it maybe. Yeah, different browsers have different ways that they render this range element. So in terms of CSS, you kind of have to write the CSS block for each of those browsers, so Safari, Chrome, and Edge. I believe we have an example.
Yeah, I have one here. So pricing styled, we can see that the pricing is, let me go to the publish site. We'll see a little bit better. Is a little bit, so it's transparent. And this is part, I'll include it in, the clonable after this live stream. So you guys can play around with it.
But to answer your question, you can change the complete look of it. So you can change the scrubber, you can change the track, you can change the highlighted bit of the track. So it could have any color, any, maybe don't add an image background to it, but the rest, it should be feasible to do.
Yeah, so essentially, if we look, this is the default styling. In here, we have some custom CSS, and if, because we have to target the actual button to say, hey, make it larger, take the left percentage of the track, make it yellow. If you want to dive into that code, I have it in the clonable. I'll include the link after the live stream, so you can play around a little bit. I think it's somewhere in here, or if it's in the page settings. Yeah, calculator style right here. And Alessia has done the hard work of adjusting it for every browser, and you can kind of grab it. There was either in the YouTube chat or in the Instagram chat talking about dates. So how about we add a date picker? Does that feel like is that possible? How should I think about, I just want like a little calendar, like a very simple calendar.
Yes, let's do it. So that's another input.
Okay, so MDN and an input date.
That's the one.
Okay, input type equal date. So okay, I'm a pro now. Let's go ahead and add, let's paste this. Let's get, when do you need your site? How about that? Let's remove this one right here. And let's add a custom element. Let's move it out of here. Bam. Like that. And here would be input, correct?
Correct.
Input and type. No, not date, type.
Type equals date. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
You're a pro now.
I'm a pro. Well, thanks to you and everyone here. Okay. So there's some great questions in the chat I do want to get to. So now we have a date picker. Oh, we can make the text black. And then we could probably do with custom styling, right? Because
it's probably because the form itself has a
right. So it's
defaults to white.
Let's go calendar date. Let's make the text. Yeah, here we go. Typography. Let's make that black. And then, okay, we have our date picker. Go us.
Nice.
That was too easy. So there's some questions. I am shapeshifting. Thank you, Zach. We are all shapeshifters now with the custom element. So now's a good time. Go ahead and drop your questions in the chat around the custom element, whether it's another custom element that you may want us to explore or existing questions. I'm going to take those now. So there's a question. Can we use Webflow styling for custom elements?
Yes.
Yes.
So you can, yes, to a point, depending what it is. So the range input is a perfect example of what you cannot style because it's multiple items that you want to style within one element. Okay. So as long as the custom element is kind of like one, or at least what you're trying to style is the overall look of that custom element. So for example, like you did with the date, you just wanted to change the text color for the whole element, you can do it within Webflow.
Got it. So we can style the whole ranger to say, hey, make the width 100 or, change the text color. But to say, hey, there's a little bit of HTML, there's additional elements in the input range, namely like the track to the left, the size of the button, which we don't include all of the HTML elements. We just say input range. To target those, you would need custom code. Is that like understanding it correctly?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so if you are comfortable and you want to talk a little bit about Canvas, there's a lot of interest in the chat around how to use Canvas. So either happy to pull up a site that you worked on, or just go into MDN and talk about it generally, if you feel comfortable talking about Canvas, because I have never used it.
I used it yesterday for the first time, so I can tell my story
You're a pro.
of
You know everything there is to know about Canvas, I'm sure.
of why I came about the Canvas element. So I was playing around with a library called Chart.js, which is a open source. Basically, they plot charts for you given a set of data. And when I was looking at their documentation, they said that you needed a canvas on there to render the chart that you want to show. And I thought, oh, great, I can do that now with the custom element, because you can just add the canvas HTML tag to that element and give in an ID or a class. And then, well, in this case, Chart.js could just target it and add, the graph in there.
Okay, so the canvas itself does nothing. It's a canvas, right?
Yes.
But you can then use, so here they're using, kind of fill style, some JavaScript to say, take, CTX, which is that canvas we just created, and fill it with green, and you filled it with Chart.js, essentially. You put a chart in the canvas.
Correct. Yes.
Got it.
So it's kind of like, a canvas, I guess, where you can load whatever JavaScript package or render anything from an external source.
Yeah. So if anyone in the chat has an example of a website where you've used Canvas, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Would love to highlight it, show it off. And that is just one other example. Now's a good time. If you have a question and you want to drop it, go ahead and do that in the chat. I'm kind of looking if there are some questions that I missed. Now's a good time to go ahead and drop your name in the form as well. I'm not seeing any questions on Instagram or on YouTube. So, Alessia, I'm going to wait for some questions. But as we're waiting for some questions, where can folks either continue learning from you? Where can they, continue following your custom element journey from here, or your journey generally, maybe?
Mainly on Twitter. So you can, follow me on Twitter. Oh, my hashtag, my profile includes my surname, which is really long and annoying.
I got you. I'm going to go drop it in the chat.
That's better. But it's Ale_Sannazzaro with a double N and a double Z. I should have thought about that when I created my account.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're a different age. I got you. Dropped it in the chat. So go ahead and follow Alessia. Alessia, there are no more questions. Just a huge thank you for joining us today. It was an honor, and we learned so much. So a huge thank you from me and from everyone in the chat. And I hope you'll join us again in the future.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Alessia. Really appreciate you joining us. So have a good one. Oh, let me go to me. There we go. All right. Well, that was this week's live stream. Thank you so much to Alessia. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for folks on YouTube and on Instagram. Really appreciate. I'll be back in 2 weeks with Joe Moore talking about animating topography. We had that next week, but we're actually going to do it in 2 weeks. And without further ado, here are this week's credits. So always take a moment. Now is a good time to grab a sip of water. Thank you so much to Pablo, Marcel, Zach, the Floxies community. Thank you so much for joining. Real honor to have you all here. So we had Jonathan, Ronnie, Marcus, Emmanuel, Neza. We've got the Floxies community, Pablo, Michael, Zach, Ariel, Audrin. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope to see you back here in 2 weeks when Jomar is with us. So thank you again. Have a great day, everyone, and have a great week. Bye, everyone.